Welcome to Pieces of China, an online series that tells the story of China, one object at a time. I'm Dinda Elliott, the Director of Programs at China Institute, and I'm honored today to be joined by Kwan. Kevin is renowned, as most of you all know, as the author of the hugely popular Crazy Rich Asians trilogy, and most recently of a new book, Sex and Vanity, that was published earlier this month. I have read it and it is great, very juicy. So check it out. And I'm hearing that it's now celebrating its 5th or 7th week on the bestseller list. So it's very, very popular. It's a great book. So please read it. Kevin, thank you so much for being here. And let's dive right in.
It's a pleasure and honor.
So Kevin, for your object, you've chosen a Christian Dior dress from 2009. Why is that? And what does that have to do with China today?
Well, I think the dress was really a turning point for Christian Dior and for John Galliano, the designer. You know, he was sort of obsessed with blue and white Chinese porcelain. So if you see, he's taken the classic Dior dress, you know, the hourglass shaped dress that created what they called the new look back in the 50s that made it so revolutionary. And he's added another layer with this underline, you know, of this beautiful Chinese porcelain just peeking through. So it hints at China, but it isn't an overtly sort of chinoiserie look. But I think pretty much encapsulates what has happened to fashion and luxury these days. You know, the Chinese influence is there. It's infused in fashion these days because the Chinese love Christian Dior and they love high fashion. And they love couture.
Yeah, just to be really vulgar for a moment, what is something like this? You know, what's the kind of range of the price for something like this?
Well, this is a couture gown. So, you know, they make them to measure. You know, there are up to 3 to 4 fittings for the client that chooses to buy this off the runway. And there's only one dress per continent. So if you are that lady in Shanghai wearing this dress, you'll know, you know, unless someone flew over from New York, you're going to be in the only dress, you know, in China with that look. So I would say this dress was probably at least 250,000 US.
Oh my God.
And up. So depending on how she customized it, what she wanted to do with the ruffles, the interior, it could go anywhere from 250 up to 7 figures.
Okay, you've definitely impressed me. So that's great. And probably the audience. Okay, so Kevin, fashion is also close to you personally. I know you recently dug out some fabulous photographs of your grandmother. Can we take a look at those now and talk about her for a moment?
Yeah, you know, I grew up with my grandmother. I grew up in her house, and she was definitely the family matriarch. And, you know, I think as a child, I was afraid of her, you know, because she was such a formidable character. But as I got to know her, as I got older, and as I actually learned more about her, you know, many years after her death, and would hear about people speaking about her, I really realized what a fantastic, fascinating person she was. You know, she was one of the leading debutantes of her day. And very accomplished, you know, she was highly educated. And as you can see, you know, always dressed at the height of fashion. You know, her clothes, her shoes, they all came from Paris. They were all shipped to her, you know, by steamer back then, you know.
Wow.
And you can even see the detail in the shoes. I mean, this is 1930 we're talking about, and she's wearing like a Lucien Lelong, very modernist dress, you know, and this was at home in Singapore.
So chic. Oh my God, it's so beautiful.
And this is more of a fusion between East and West. This was that long cheongsam.
So modern.
That actually took these modern Art Deco lines and gave them a Chinese twist. And yeah, so it's fascinating to look at these pictures.
Yeah, so before we go back to the present, you know, a little tiny bit more about your family, because it seems like it's a perfect example of sort of the early days of really, really rich, sorry, I don't mean to be rude, but wealthy Chinese culture. I mean, they came from a very prominent family in Fujian, right? Established themselves in Singapore. And tell us what language they spoke in the family.
English, mainly. You know, I mean, she also spoke Fujianese and Mandarin and Cantonese because she was much more educated than I ever was. But, you know, it was a very sort of Anglophile atmosphere that I grew up in. You know, my parents didn't speak a word of Mandarin at all. Everything was done in English. And I didn't even know I had Chinese roots, you know, until I was a little older. I thought, you know, Singaporean was a very distinct culture.
Yes.
Very different from mainland China.
Right. Fascinating. Okay. So you spent a lot of time with crazy rich Chinese during and after the writing of your book, China Rich Girlfriend, another book that everybody should read. Um, those days of China's nouveau riche driving Maseratis around Beijing are kind of over, though, right? Extravagance, my understanding is that extravagance has now sort of gone underground. Is that true? And if so,
You know,
why?
it did for a minute. It did for a minute because for 1 minute the government really clamped down. You know,
Yeah.
they really, there was this wave where they wanted to root out all the corruption. And they didn't want, you know, some low level politicians or party members spending millions and flaunting it. But it's back again with a vengeance. And it's very, you know, proud new money. These are self-made people who've made fortunes overnight, and they are proudly expressing themselves. And, you know, China wants its people to get rich and be prosperous. They want people to spend and feed that engine of luxury. So,
Mhm.
you know,
Mhm.
it's from what I've been told, you know, I was able to talk to some key fashion leaders and people that run big brands over there. It's just gone nuts, even during the pandemic, like, you know, sort of
Yeah. The
quarantine.
pandemic period. Yeah.
The minute that was over in China, spending returned like never before, and they're doing better right now than they did even before the pandemic began.
Oh my gosh. So that
So
manifests itself, of course, in the fashion world and in clothing. So I'm fascinated to hear you talk about the level of sophistication of the new Chinese rich. Um, it seems like it's not just about wanting to flash their wealth. It seems like they're very quickly kind of learning the trappings of what we would call old wealth. Tell us a little bit about, you've spent time with them in Paris, et cetera. What, you know, how sophisticated is this? Is not, um, you know, people walking around
this is
looking
not Beverly
ridiculous.
Hillbillies.
Yes,
This is
it's
not
not
Beverly
Beverly
Hillbillies anymore.
Hillbillies. Exactly.
Exactly.
Thank
You
you.
know, I was astonished because I went to the couture shows back in 2018 in the spring, and I was astonished to see so many elegant, exquisitely dressed, you know, couture clients who were from China in the audience, sitting in the front row of the runways. You know, it used to be on the front rows, you would see, you know, European princesses, you would see New York socialites, you know, Nan Kempner, people like that. And now it's a whole new generation of mainly Asian style leaders. And
Mhm.
what's happened, you know, they fell in love with couture. They're still in love with couture, but now they've really made it their own. You know, fashion has become such a means of expression in China. Everyone wants to look original. They want to have their own taste. They want to mix things up. You know, gone are the days where they're in head to toe Gucci or head to toe Chanel. No, now they all want to be style influencers, and they all want to make a statement. And, you know, it's very of the moment. It's very social media obsessed. They love taking selfies and posting it, and you know, it's sort of fascinating to see how quickly that has all changed, and fashion has become paramount
I
and
love this
important.
so much because I think it has broader implications about where, I mean, I think that we in the West have such an outdated view of China. So even when I was just asking about driving Maseratis around Beijing, you know, first, I think that we forget that how quickly things change in China, that not only do you have 40 years of infrastructural development, but you also the sort of intellectual development. I mean, that sounds condescending, but I mean, the culture is changing also with lightning speed.
It's
And so,
evolving at warp speed. It truly
right,
is. You know,
right.
I was talking to one of the CEOs of a major luxury brand, and he said basically every 3 months they have an entire new client list of people they've never seen before that will come in
Wow.
and buy millions of dollars worth of clothing
Right.
in a means of expressing themselves. And so, you know, here in New York or here in Paris, there's, you know, a client base that sort of shifts slowly, you know, over the years, over the decades. There it's every 3 months because fortunes are being made at such a quick pace. You know, he said to me, there are so many billionaires now who've made money just off face masks in the last 3 months, you know, and so they
Wow.
are proudly spending it and proudly expressing themselves.
Wow.
And why shouldn't they?
And right, absolutely.
Yeah.
But the other thing that's so interesting, two other points to pull out of what you're talking about is, you know, again, back to the, it's no longer the Beverly Hillbillies. It's you know, these are people who are educated at Harvard and Oxford and Singapore National University or whatever, you know, they're educated at,
Absolutely. The
right?
taste
There's a
level,
level, yes.
the taste level and the connoisseurship is so high, and they are demanding the best. And they know what to look for. And it's not just all about seeing, you know, that status symbol embossed on the dress anymore. They, you know, they want really the accoutrements that really are a much more personal sense of luxury. It's a private luxury for them.
Yeah, the other thing that's so fascinating about what you just said is the individuality that you said they want to have their own look, that it's not about dressing head to toe in Chanel anymore. And
Absolutely.
I think we in the West also kind of forget that has emerged a tremendous sense of individuality and individualism and independent thinking in China. Yeah.
They want to be original, but they want it now. You know, they want to be the first to have that runway look or that car that no one else has.
Right.
Way before everyone else it does. So that's part of the status of it all.
So there's still a status element,
yes.
right?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. It's all about status, ultimately.
Right. So how has someone like Guo Pei changed the scene? I mean, she's a phenomenal designer, only the second born and raised Asian designer who's been inducted into the exclusive group of fashion houses that can legally brand themselves as haute couture. How is that changing the game now that you have, you know, top Chinese designers who are entering the Western world of haute couture? Can the Chinese just stay home now and find the luxury they long for there?
Well, first of all, they are so proud of her. You know, she's really become an icon in China just because she really put the look of Chinese luxury on the international map. You know, when Rihanna walked up the red carpet at the Costume Institute in that amazing, you know, Ming yellow embroidered gown, the world took notice of Guo Pei, you know, if they hadn't before.
Yes.
So they are extremely proud of her. You know, people are really supporting her in China. But beyond that, what's changed is that, the rich Chinese used to flock to the cities of Europe, to Paris, to London, to Milan, to New York also. You know, you see them in Madison Avenue. They always felt that they could get the best there, and that's changing. Luxury has come to China. You know, all the big brands are building the most amazing boutiques, flagship stores that just really just kind of outdo everything we've seen. You know, when I go to Hong Kong, even in the airport, the Chanel boutique in the airport is just jaw-droppingly beautiful. So they're doing that. They're creating these custom experiences and these beautiful spaces. And so the Chinese more and more are finding that they're shopping at home and they're getting better stock in China because it's coming straight to them. They don't have to sort of fight with the Europeans or everyone else, you know, for all the stock in Paris. And it's catered to them. And so more and more they're staying at home and shopping because they've got the better shopping there now. So will we start all going to Shanghai to shop? That's
interesting. And I wonder also, are the Chinese increasingly proud of their own luxury products or their own luxury designers? And, you know, it used to be all about just getting the Western stuff. I wonder if there's a new pride in Chinese.
Certainly. Absolutely. You know, I think that the people that really are at the top of the status ladder are collecting contemporary Chinese art, for example.
Oh, for sure.
At the same time, they're buying back all the antiques that went to Europe or went to the US.
Right.
That, you know, were raided from the Summer Palace in Beijing, things like that. So there's a return of the culture and there's a return of the antiquities, but they really are championing, you know, the amazing contemporary artists that are coming out of China. Contemporary design, it's, you know, they're innovating in a whole new way, which is so impressive. And it keeps changing. Every year, every month, I discover a new designer or a new artisan from China that's doing something incredible.
Right. The antiquity stories is fascinating because it's so interesting that the sort of, you know, super kind of antiquities experts in the West who had been treasuring their snuff bottles and collecting them carefully over the years and all that, they've been completely priced out of the market by the Chinese. You know, they just can't even play anymore because it's all going back to China, as you suggest.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So we're coming up to time, but I want to finally ask you about your latest book, Sex and Vanity. So Sex and Vanity is really it's kind of more about old money, isn't it? Tell us a little bit about it.
You know, once again, it's about the clash between old money and new money. And this time I'm satirizing old money New York. You know, I'm looking at the East Coast WASP establishment, and there's a collision between that and the new tech fortunes that are coming up. And it's very well represented in a love triangle. You know, my heroine, Lucy Tang Churchill,
I
is
love the name. The
biracial.
name is so perfect.
Thank you. You know, her mother is American-born Chinese, but her father comes from a very, very, Park Avenue, mainline, Mayflower sort of fortune. And so she has to play by the rules. You know, she's really torn between her Asian side and her WASPy side. She's torn between two classes, her mother's middle-class family and her father's, sort of ultra exclusive, you know, gentrified family. And of course, she's torn between two men. So, that's where the
Fabulous.
excitement begins, and hopefully people will enjoy it. It's set
Go
in
out,
Capri, the
yeah,
Upper East Side, and the Hamptons.
go out and read it. It's the perfect escape from what we're all experiencing in the rest of the world. So I'm afraid we have to stop here, but I promise you all that we're going to try very hard to get Kevin Kwan back again in longer form, sharing his insights and stories about the super, super rich and their lives and other things. I also want to encourage you all, please urge you to please become members of China Institute. You get great discounts on our classes and everything else that we offer, but really more importantly, you help us bring great speakers like Kevin Kwan to our programming, our diverse array of programs. And as always, you can watch these Pieces of China episodes on China Institute's YouTube page, so please check them out. And join us for our next episode on September 10th. So we're taking a week hiatus for a couple weeks, but September 10th with the magnificent Yusai Khan, who will talk about the lipstick that changed China. So Kevin, I just want to thank you so much for helping us tell the story of China.
It's been so fun. Thank you for having me.
You're great. Thank you.
Thanks. Take care.